Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming to the last session. I'm Peter Watkins. I'm Executive Director, Technology and Innovation within the Provincial Government Office of the CIO, and I'd like to introduce the speakers for our next session. Gabe Sawhney is an experienced designer, creative technologist, and innovation strategist. Gabe uses design technology to address creative, civic, and business challenges. He's a pioneer in Canadian civic tech community and has helped co-found Civic Tech Toronto and has launched Code for Canada. And Gabe was kind enough, I can't remember when, Gabe, but Gabe invited me to present in Toronto in the context of the work we were doing around the BC Developers Exchange. That was a real pleasure, Gabe. Thank you for that. Fatima Khalid is a software engineer, has worked inside and outside of government. Her adventures in civic tech have taken her from the US to Canada. She's worked for Microsoft, City of Boston, Echidna, which is a type of anteater apparently, so the Australian person that founded that thought that would be a good name. And most recently, Code for Canada. As a Code for Canada developer, fellow at Transport Canada, a Code for Canada developer fellow at Transport Canada, she and her team conducted user research and agile development to build a digital tool for recreational drone pilots to fly more safely and legally. I'd like to welcome Gabe and Fatima to the stage. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, last session of the day. Thank you for being here with us. So I'm Gabe Sawhney. I'm the Executive Director of Code for Canada. I'm going to talk a little about the work that we do partnering with government. And Fatima is going to tell a story about the project that she worked on as a Code for Canada Fellow. So Code for Canada is a nonprofit. We started 2.5 years ago. We're part of a network called Code for All of similar organizations around the world. We talk about our work as being connecting innovators in government with the technology and design community. We are the sort of champions of the civic tech movement in Canada. We define civic tech as in sort of contrast to consumer technology. Our programs are all in different ways, finding ways of connecting innovators in government with people in the tech and design community. Our goal is to help build digital capacity in government and simultaneously civic capacity in the tech and design community. Our biggest program is the fellowship, and that's the one that I'm going to talk about a bit more now. So the general structure of our fellowship program, which is modeled after some of our network colleagues in Code for America and Code for Australia, is that we will identify folks in government, our government partners, who have a challenge that they are that they suspect has a technology solution, but where for whatever reason on their own they haven't been able to set it up, that they'd like some help from outside. We'll work with them to specifically frame that as a challenge, create a challenge statement, and then we'll go out and we'll find fellows. I'll say more about fellows in a moment, but each team of fellows is made up of a software developer, a UX designer, and a product manager. We'll connect them with the government partner. They'll spend 10 months doing user research, prototyping, testing, and iterating to understand that challenge, its dimensions, the stakeholders, and to deliver some kind of solution. And in addition to, they've got two jobs. One is to deliver the solution. The second job is to share their tools and their process with their colleagues in government. That the folks who they're sitting shoulder to shoulder with, so that when the fellows are done after 10 months, that their colleagues feel very confident, very well equipped to continue to maintain and improve that product and also apply some of those processes and tools to other challenges that they may have. So like I said, they've got those two jobs: to deliver a new digital service addressing a challenge, and very deliberately working in the open, both so that their colleagues are learning about their tools and their process. But at the same time, there's a significant, there's a ton of learning on the part of these fellows, that sort of civic capacity building, where a lot of folks with technology and design skills got into those fields because they believe that those skills, that those tools are really, those tools can genuinely be used to help improve people's lives. And that so commonly, once they're out in the job world, job hunting, that they're not able to find meaningful opportunities to apply those skills against. Government has no shortage of meaningful opportunities. So I mentioned a product manager, software developer, and UX designer. Fellows are mid-career, folks with anywhere between 2 and 10 years of experience, who are interested in applying their skills to meaningful challenges, may be curious about working in government, but generally haven't. And so they'll typically, after the fellowship, they're very likely to, they're most likely to either pursue a role in government. That a lot of folks use the fellowship as a stepping stone to switch into the public sector, and some of them will just treat it as a tour of duty. That they'll spend some time applying their skills to in a new environment on more complex challenges, and then afterwards are very happy to go back to the private sector where they were before. This is our current group of fellows. This is our 3rd cohort. These fellows are from most of them are from Canada, but they're in several of them who had been working and living abroad previously and who came back to Canada in order to join as fellows. They are currently, we've got 2 of these teams of 3 are in Ottawa, 1 is in Toronto, and 1's in Calgary. These are the partners who we've been working with so far. We work with all levels of government. Though clearly, we're, as an organization that's based in Toronto with a national mandate, we have strongest connections in Ontario. We're very actively working to build relationships with other jurisdictions across the country. And one of the things that we do, the fellows are selected through an open call, and so in order to help get people interested in applying, we produce these videos that we work with each of our partners, short videos that describe the challenge and get fellows excited about applying. So it's just a short one that we'll run now.
Ag and food is a really exciting business. It's a big deal in Ontario. It employs over 825,000 people, adds $40 billion to the Ontario economy. We have over 45,000 farmers growing a diversity of crops. This puts food on the table of people in Ontario, throughout Canada, and exports around the world. At the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, we are focused on optimizing our economic development opportunities, making sure that our food systems are safe, and that we're employing the best practices possible to ensure environmental sustainability. One of the top risks that farmers in the industry are continually managing are pests, and that can include everything from diseases like fire blight in apples and pears to insects like pepper weevil that can affect greenhouses and fields. Without the effective management of risks, the consequences are quite significant. Farmers can lose all or parts of their crop, the quality can be greatly affected, the entire value chain is also impacted right to the consumer's table. Good pest management requires good data, and today the information that farmers need is all over the place. It's with laboratories, it's with academia, it is with government, it is with farmers and a slew of other businesses. We are so excited to have the Code for Canada Fellows join us here at the Ministry to help us tackle this problem. You will work alongside our teams of experts to make sure that farmers have the information they need when they need it. So with this data, farmers are going to be able to manage pests more effectively and efficiently and get ahead of problems even before they start. And more than that, this will give farmers the technologies of the future to better manage their crops, their livelihood, and protect the environment. For Ontario to be successful, we need to stay ahead of the curve. We need people who can think out of the box, who can be innovative, who can challenge the status quo. In short, we need people like you to join our team.
Great. So the fellowship, we described the fellowship, it's doing two things at the same time. The fellows are delivering a new digital service that addresses a challenge. They're also helping build the digital capacity of the team that they're embedded in. It's very difficult to do either of those. It's difficult to do either of those things alone successfully. We found that it's actually quite a bit more, we can get more success by doing them both simultaneously. That's what the fellowship is about. So just a couple of snapshots of the kinds of projects we're working on. That Ontario project is in progress right now. Some of the ones that we've done in the past, one of our early projects was with Veterans Affairs, where the fellows built a new benefits finder. VAC offers an incredibly wide range of benefits to veterans. But guess what? It's confusing. So the fellows designed and tested a whole bunch of new, not just an online tool to find benefits, but also the actual written descriptions of what those benefit programs are, which they found that those descriptions themselves were part of the barrier. And that tool is currently available right now on the front page of VAC. We had a team at the City of Toronto who built a tool that essentially is an interface that allows people to much more easily access data that's in a couple of legacy databases. That the interfaces, those systems are quite old, the interfaces are a bit clunky, and that the difficulty of accessing that data was actually having a giant impact on the city's ability to meet the commitments that they'd made around Vision Zero. To be able to better understand traffic volume and collision data is the kind of information that they need in order to create interventions, in order to change the way that roads and intersections work. But without that data, they weren't able to do that in an informed way. This tool is going to make accessing that information a lot faster for them. And finally, with the Public Service Commission of Canada, the fellows there were tasked with building a new online testing platform. One of the really cool side effects of that was that the fellows needed a new stack to work with in order to build the platform that they were building. That stack that they proposed, which is GitHub and React and other sort of modern tools, was adopted wholesale by the PSC that can be used by other teams for building other products, and it was the first new technology stack that they'd adopted in quite a long while. So that gives you a bit of a snapshot of the range of projects that fellows work on, and one of the things that we do at the end of each of those fellowship cohorts is tell the story. That this is something that's often difficult for government to do on its own, and so we make a big deal of it because the work that the fellows and their partners do together needs to be honored, and those stories need to be told, and those successes celebrated, and the failures shared, so that we can learn from them. We do that through our showcase events, which we do at the end of each cohort, where each of the fellows and their government partners tell the story together of the work that they've done and what they've learned over the 10 months of the fellowship. Along the way, we're telling stories, telling bits of the story along the way about what fellows are learning through research, about sort of aha moments and challenges and how they overcome them. But the showcase is where we tell the sort of complete story. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Fatima, who will share her story about her fellowship project.
Such business.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Okay, hi, my name is Fatima. I was a Code for Canada fellow in the previous cohort, so my team and I just wrapped up our fellowship this past August. We were working with Transport Canada on drone safety and regulations, and I'm going to share with you the challenge that we were given, the thing that we built, and kind of things that we learned along the way. What's working? It's not working. Okay. Oh, I got to point it. Okay. So drones are this really exciting new technology. You and I can easily get a drone. We can just get it for a birthday or as a gift at Christmas. But they can be used for really cool things like delivering medical supplies to remote areas or for helping first responders quickly assess an area for hazards before moving in. But most of the recreational drone pilots, or what we call hobbyist drone users in Canada, are just flying for fun. And they really want to take cool photos from the sky or take like aerial drone shots or play with this new piece of technology that they've gotten. And so very quickly at Transport Canada, there's this new group of users who are flying drones. And flying has become this really accessible and fun activity and more appealing to more and more people. But with all of these new drone operators taken to the sky, most of them are people who don't know a thing about aviation and aren't really sure about what legalities there are to flying a drone and how to be safe and legal about it. And so with new pilots, we have a lot of new risks. And as you can imagine, drones wildly flying towards somebody can be very dangerous if they fall from the sky, if they hurt you. And so these new risks mean that Transport Canada has to come up with new rules. And so in June 1st of this year, Transport released new rules for drones that were dealing with this new group of users. So people now had to pass an exam to get certified and register their drone. And there's like a map where they have to check where they can fly. But since they were dealing with this new group of users and these new rules, they decided to bring in Code for Canada fellows to help them help drone pilots. So that's where we came in. And as fellows, our mission was to build a digital tool to help these recreational drone pilots fly more safely and legally within those new regulations. And we started our project by doing a lot of research. We talked to people at Transport Canada to better understand the insight that goes into making these regulations. How are they developed? What kinds of things go into deciding that people need to take an exam? And we also studied the domain, like what are drones? What constitutes a drone? Why are certain types of drones regulated and others not? Then we went ahead and did one-on-one drone pilot interviews across Canada and talked to real drone operators in depth to better understand their needs. What's most exciting? What's most frustrating? What kinds of things were they looking for when they were going out to fly their drones? But we did have one really interesting thing during this fellowship, and that was that the rules were being released while we were doing the fellowship. And so there weren't really drone pilots out there yet that had gone through these new regulations. So we had to become our users. And so I went to Best Buy and we bought a drone, and I tried to figure out, like, what do I need to do in order to do this the right way? And it was a really confusing process. I did go out and fly, as you can see, in downtown Ottawa, but I'm not really sure if I did it legally. So we'll never know. One common theme that we heard as we were talking to these drone pilots and as we were conducting this immersion study, as we called it, was that people were asking, how do I do what it is that you want me to do? We talked to our stakeholders and drone pilots and even flight schools, and we realized that people are really struggling to apply these regulations in the real world. So we mapped out the user journey from unboxing your drone to going out to fly. And there's a lot more pieces to this process. But the part that we saw that our users had the most trouble with was step 3, survey the area. In regulation terms, this is better known as the site survey. It's an important part of pre-flight planning. To do a site survey, you have to make sure that you're away from airports, that you're away from aircrafts. You have to kind of judge the area. Are there people? Are there buildings? What's the weather? What type of drone do I have? Is it going to be affected by the change in temperature? Things like that. And so we thought if we could get people thinking about all of the things and get them to really understand why that safety matters, we could put them on this right track to flying safely. So we decided to build an educational tool. But throughout our research process, we built and tested multiple prototypes of this tool. So what it started out as wasn't exactly what it finished as. For example, through this iterative process, we learned that what we originally thought our drone pilots needed was a checklist app But we were wrong. We thought that, hey, here's an app. You can go do your site survey on the go in the field. But we quickly found out that our drone pilots weren't really ready for that yet. In fact, our pilots told us that they weren't even confident about how to complete the site survey, much less be ready to complete it right away. And so they needed to be taken through this process step by step. We took some more research and did some more in-depth interviews to figure out that our product vision should be more of an educational app that started at the beginning and guided them through that process. So we started building what we called the Drone Companion app. It's an educational tool. It's a mobile app that helps drone pilots learn what they need to do in order to get to the site survey. So, hey, you bought a drone, here's what you need to know about your drone, you're legally required to have your manual, things like that. And we wrote all of those regulations in plain language so people could better understand what they were expected to do, and built it with reusable components that could scale across other projects at transport. And as we built the features of this tool, each one of them kind of came from insights from our users. So I'm going to share some of those insights with you. So the first insight we heard from users was that there is never a single source of truth and information for all of the things that they needed to know to go and fly their drone. And they felt really, really overwhelmed by all of the resources that were available. As you can see, this can be very overwhelming and complex and confusing. And these are just some of the pieces of data that you need to kind of understand and read and analyze in order to understand whether you're flying legally. So we made it easier for our drone pilots to see all of the information that they needed in one place, and we broke it down into tasks so they could go at their own pace and go step by step and do things as they can. The second insight we gained was that users had a lot of challenges in putting the regulations into action. So they knew what they needed to do, but they didn't know how to do it. And this is actually the site survey regulation as shown on the Transport Canada website. And so our users were having a lot of trouble reading this and figuring out, how do I put this into action? My notes are not catching up. So we broke down each of the tasks with clear objectives, but we thought, what if our drone pilots didn't know how to complete this objective? So we tell them more. We also tell them why it's important so they can understand the safety risks involved with each task. And we also tell them how to do it best. So we give them some information on, this is the best way that you can complete this objective. We also created the application in French so they can toggle the language at any time if they better understand it in a different language. The third insight that we gained from our drone pilots was that they felt like they were doing their best, but they didn't feel good about it, and they didn't know if it was good enough. There was really no feedback loop with some of the regulations and going out to fly and not really knowing, like, I did the thing, but did I do it right? Kind of like how I experienced it. To help with that, we created a pre-quiz before every task and a post-quiz after every objective. That way, you can come in feeling really good about what you already knew, and after you've completed the task, you can test yourself on what you've just learned. So our users can feel really good and confident about the things that they've just done. What we have is just a prototype, but what we saw with our colleagues at Transport Canada was this potential to start building things that were user-driven and make sense of regulations in a new way that was easier for users to understand. And Transport Canada is really keen about how they could take that and apply it to other types of regulations. And they joke about doing like agile regulation policy writing, which I thought was really great because it was kind of an impact of our fellowship. But one part, as you heard from Gabe, of the fellowship is delivering and building this product, but the other part of it is the digital capacity. So working with our team at Transport Canada to help them, take the tools that we're working on. So part of that took many different forms from us. So part of it was like sharing our tools like Slack and Trello and getting our colleagues on board with that. It was tweeting and working in the open and getting really excited when our chief digital officer retweeted us, and having a newsletter and sending out project updates every month. And so we really loved doing that and engaging with the Transport Canada community. And through that sort of 10 months, I learned a couple of things that I want to share with you about culture change in government and how hard it can be. So the first thing is that change is really, really uncomfortable, and like doing things in a new way is very, very hard. And so we were these like shiny new fellows that came into government and were like asking all these questions about why, and people's instinct was to like turn and run away really, really far away. And they were like, oh, we can't do this, like our director won't allow us to do this, like blah, 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 blah. Like there was a lot of tension and discomfort, and we really had to come from a place of empathy and be like, no, we're really here to work with you, and we really do want you to adopt our tools, and it's not just we're gonna leave in 6 months and you'll never see this again. And so something that I learned was that embracing new ways of working means changing your processes. So old processes aren't gonna work for new ways of working. And so if you're expecting your team to deliver the same product in the same timeline, but do it agile, do it with React, have automated pipelines and stuff like that, like it's not going to be delivered in the same amount of time. You need to create space for training. You need to give space for people to fail. You need to give them those opportunities to learn those new technologies and to kind of grow as they go. And so if you want new ways of working, you're going to have to change your old processes. We had this one meeting where we were very lucky to have like ministers at the table, and we were talking about like how can we share failures better, because our teams are afraid to share failures. And someone was like, okay, just write an action plan and we'll make it happen. And I remember my director was like, another action plan? Like this is not how we solve a new problem with an old solution. And so that's where that's inspired. And then something that we discovered was like business folks would tell us like, oh, so we just throw the requirements over the wall to the tech side, and then they just like throw the product back over. And a lot of times we as fellows were at this like intersection of, you know, our business team, our engineering team, our IT team, and we were like, this language is making it worse. Like this language is breaking down these collaborations that need to happen in order for all of these teams to work together, and to work together often and fail together often so they can learn from that. And so one way that Code for Canada kind of sets us up for success is that we have this interdisciplinary team. Like we as fellows are like a product manager, a developer, and a designer. But on our team at Transport, we had somebody from drones engineering, one person from policy, and a person from the IT team. So we kind of had a representative from each of the departments that would kind of own this product together. And so that really helped us succeed. And another thing that we were set up with was something called a project panel. And so this was this monthly meeting of directors from those departments, someone from legal, someone from communications, so that no one would be surprised when something landed on their table or when they were expected to review something. Like, get everybody on the same page at the table from the beginning, and then when people have agency, they're more willing to be a part of the project and help you unblock things. And something that I personally, whoa, I'm so sorry. Something that I personally feel very strongly about is that you already have champions in your department. And something that I found was that there were teams at the bottom at Transport who were doing some really, really great work. And then there were people at the top who are like talking about agile and digital transformation. It's great. And they're pushing down these initiatives. And so at the bottom, they're like, we're already doing those things. And at the top, they're like, why is nobody doing these things? And so everything was kind of getting stuck in what we call this like clay layer. And so what we as fellows, we think about ourselves as like we build with, not for. And so something that we had to be really conscious of was that like fellowships are not the end goal. Fellowships are kind of like a catalyst. And so get to that. Fellowships can help you figure out where those gaps are and where those champions are, and we can kind of build the momentum. We can start a new tech stack. We can get you on the cloud. But after that, it's up to you and your people to kind of bring that to light. And we spent a lot of time as a team thinking about, like, why is it that what we do works and what these other tech teams are doing at Transport, which they're also agile, they're also on GitHub, they're working in sprints, like, why are they not being recognized? And I think the key here was that we had tools, we had access to everything that we needed, and we were trusted. And so our directors came to us because we were these fancy fellows that like had ultimate trust, and we could do whatever we wanted. And so if you equip your people with those three things, I imagine that you will find that you had your champions all along. And then my favorite, something that I heard on the ground very often, was this concept of feeding the beast. And it was these managers telling me that, like, we feed the beast so that our teams don't have to deal with the bureaucracy and the red tape, and, you know, we fight these battles for them. And I was like, that's great, but we just don't talk about it as often. It's a lot of, like, we had to feed the beast for the project, and that's just how requirements work, and people are kind of treating it like status quo. And so what we were thinking that was different about the fellowship that kind of helped us talk about our successes and failures in the open was that we're really encouraged to share our stories at every point of the fellowship. And so we'll be like, here, this is what we think the concept is. Here's why we pivoted. We spent 2 weeks on that, and that's okay because we gained insight from that failure, and then we were able to create a better prototype because of what we had learned. And so I think in government, on a day-to-day, you forget that you're doing some really, really, really important work. And it's really important to share not only your successes, but also your failures so that we can all learn from each other. And so sharing your stories. Finally, the most exciting thing for me about this fellowship was that Transport Canada is like this ancient regulator, and today it's drones, tomorrow it's gonna be flying cars, androids, bionic stuff, and so it's this regulator that's like trying to catch up with technology, and like drone pilots are as young as 14 years old, and this is their first interaction with government. And if our app can make that interaction just a little bit more pleasant than it could have been with those regulatory texts, like that's amazing and that's impactful, and that's why I really love the fellowship. So, giving it back to Gabe.
Each of the projects and each of our partners is in a different context, and so while the fellowship has a particular shape of 3 fellows in 10 months, that there are all kinds of variables that change the way that it plays out in practice. Like, what is the scope of the challenge? Is it something that's very small and that we're planning to deliver and get out to the public by the end of the 10 months? Or is it something that is that's actually a really a giant challenge, and the fellows are just going to chip away at one part of it? Is it a deliverable that's going to be resident-facing, or is it for a smaller set of maybe internal stakeholders? What's the type of capacity building that the team needs? Is it, in some cases, fellows are situated on a quite mature digital team, but that there may be partners that need that might need some help. In other cases, fellows are working on teams that where there isn't anyone that currently has that's currently working in building digital things. The governance models can vary widely. In some cases, their fellows are working in like extremely strict, very tight environments. In other cases, we're able to like clear a lot of space for them to experiment without a great deal of like regular reporting responsibility. In some cases, the fellows are working on their own. In other cases, they're part of a very large team. In some cases, there is already a digital or an IT team who has agreed to take on and sustain whatever the fellows build. In other cases, that's not in place, and we don't know we don't know at the beginning of the project how it's going to be sustained, but that there's a clear need for that this work must begin, and let's just get rolling and figure the rest out later. And then finally, the type of relationship. In some cases, the relationship between Code for Canada and the partner is we're using a kind of secondment program. In other cases, we're using some sort of procurement channel. That's something that varies based on the context. And so, even though the fellowship has a sort of fixed structure, what's nice about it is that it's adaptable to a lot of different contexts. And then finally, what we look for in partners is a well-defined challenge that's intended to have some positive impact, that very likely has a digital technology solution, that'll be deployment ready in 9 months or some equivalent of that, that there's a level of readiness on the team at the partner to adopt new tools, new ways of working, new processes, and that there's buy-in up their chain of command. That those are the ingredients that we need in order to deliver a positive experience for fellows, and where there's an environment where we're very likely to get to the finish line that we're all aiming for. That's what we've got. I mean, I'd love to hear any questions that you have, but I want to start off with one of my own. I think that part of the interest in inviting us, and we're very happy to be here, is to see if this fellowship model resonates with folks here. Does are you in environments, or can you think of teams in the BC Public Service who are in a situation where they're interested in launching something new or relaunching something old, a digital service, and are they in a context where there are folks in their team that could benefit from bringing in some outside expertise to learn from? I'm interested in hearing that. What do you think of the fellowship model?
You put everyone on the spot.
I'm putting everyone on the spot. There's not that many of you.
Should have done a show of hands first.
No, I was just saying that it looks good. I like the idea of the fellowship model. I think
Thank
it's
you.
a win-win situation for all of the parties.
It certainly can enables a bunch of learning, and sometimes that digital service that comes out of the end feels just like a bonus. Anyone have questions? Other questions are okay too.
Oh, right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the challenges that we've had sometimes with teams is the idea of team members that are ephemeral. It's kind of the sustainability challenge with keeping the teams whole. Have you deployed this model with kind of an explicit idea of kind of pairwise relationships, so that there's kind of mentoring that's ongoing, and there's an expectation that at the end of the gig there's a more permanent individual who can carry on after that?
Do you want to speak to that?
I have a specific example.
Yeah, sure.
So we did have an individual from our tech team, from the IT side, Wei Guang, who was a senior developer at a .NET shop. And so he was put full-time on our team. And so we always refer to him as like the torchbearer. And like, we're going to leave in 9 months, but Wei Guang, you need to learn everything from the UX to the research to like the development. And the cool thing about it was when we started out, Wei Guang's question was, where are the requirements? We need requirements. Like, we've gotten the funding. We need. And then at the end of the 10 months, we asked him, like, what are you going to do now? Like, you're the only one left. And he said something like, well, we need to hire experts for the UX, because I can't do user interviews. I'm not the expert. And now I know how to use React, so we're going to do the thing. And so, like, watching kind of a full-time member of our team kind of go from what we thought was, like, the worst case scenario of a government partner to, like, the best case ally was really great for us.
It varies from team to team. There are some teams where they do put, like, where there's a one-to-one relationship between the fellows and colleagues in government. In other cases, it's a bit more flexible. Whether or not, I'd say that working in pairs is a really good way of doing it. But it depends on, you need to have the right people, and it needs to be a project and a context where that's going to be beneficial, which is not always the case. But that's the kind of thing that when we're sitting down with partners initially, that we map that out with them to figure out, like, how many other folks should be involved in this, and which folks should those be. I'd say there are those projects that do have, where there are pairs happening, are very. Do they have a higher chance of success? Maybe. We don't have enough data to say that, but it seems likely, unless there's some other mechanism or resource at play to help make sure that the project moves forward. Any other questions?
Oh, there's one.
I guess I'm interested in the sustainability and the scalability of the program in the space. I mean, is the idea that if government becomes tech savvy enough that your function is no longer required, or Yeah, that's a thumbs up.
Yeah. There's nothing I'd like more than a world that doesn't need this kind of support, right? Where if government is already really good at building the kinds of services, these kinds of digital services, then we can go on and do something else.
And I guess the second part of that question would be, what's the model for matching the skill sets in terms of where you're going? Are you doing a bit of, like, is the analysis there in the forefront to say, is the skills needed prior to coming in, or how does that work for you?
Do you mean at the individual partner level? Or do you mean,
well, I guess
like,
the challenge, right? I mean, I am assuming that maybe the fellowships would be at different skill levels, and the challenges would also potentially be at different skill levels in terms of what they need.
Yeah, that's a good question. None of them are easy. But I'd say that some of them, some of the challenges are obviously going to require different sets of skills, whether it's like super deep sort of data science kind of work, or if it's like, really sort of like, a challenging like beneficiary community and a ton of like user research that's going to need to be done, and then that question of like why is what is big picture, what is the partner hoping for? Like, yes, there's a product, but what is it? What are the goals around the capacity of their team? And so I think that between all of those variables, each one of these of the partners that we've worked with so far has been there's always been some it's been very chewy is the word that's coming to mind. There's like there's always some part of the work that's like that seems nearly impossible, and that gets a sort of disproportionate amount of attention, and it's sometimes totally not, very often not what we anticipated it's going to be in the beginning. So.
Yeah, like when we started, our scope was to build a tool that helps drone pilots fly safer. And we were like, that's broad. And we can't like imagine solving that in 9 months. And so the first thing we came up on was a checklist tool. And they were like, well, that kind of implies compliance. And you can't brand that with Transport Canada and imply that we're saying it's okay for you to go fly. And we were like, wait, what? And so suddenly we were coming across like these little like graves, and we were just like digging up things that we didn't expect were gonna come up. Things like, we don't want people to save half of their checklist, because what if they didn't complete the checklist, but then they went out to fly? Like, now are we legally responsible to get them in trouble for that? And so all of these really like chewy bits of things started coming up, because we had originally thought, this is so exciting, what a broad scope, we could literally do anything. And slowly we realized that there needs to be like a slice of the problem that's both impactful for the user and also for the government department to learn something from it. And like finding that angle took us quite a bit of, I think it took us like 4 months of like coming back and forth and debating over it, getting more input on it. And so that I didn't expect to be the hard part of the project, to be honest. Like, I expected the like convincing a .NET shop to go React to be the hard part, and that was the easy part. And so, yeah. Right. At the end of the day, our project was a lot about policy. So.
Cool. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for your questions.